Hi there, everybody. So the project proposals due date is coming up soon, and so I wanted to go over some of the basics about your first proposal. Number one, the idea here is to force you to get some kind of an idea into a tangible form. The project's going to start very soon. You're trying to wrap up your coursework from the advanced class, but by the time that project's course starts, I really want you to have a clear idea about what you're going to do, have data in hand, and be psyched to get going. So the first step is just really figuring out what you want to do. Identify what kind of data you're going to need and go get it. This is the biggest limitation, is having a great idea and then no way to create the data that you need in time. So make sure that you've got some workable data ready to go. The third goal is to have you face the calendar and actually look at when things are due and lay out a clear plan for yourself about when you're going to have each one of these things done. And then finally, just get going. Get some data and get analyzing. Know that your idea is going to change as you work, so that's part of it. You're not locking yourself in with this project proposal, but you have to start. And if you don't start, you're going to be behind before the course even starts. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about some kind of spatial analysis. I want you to calculate things, not just display and visualize things. So ask yourself questions about things that happen at places, right? That's what GIS is. Identifying spatial distributions, quantifying spatial characteristics of places, or describing the way a place changes over time. So there are different ways to kind of motivate yourself to get into this, and one way is to let the data basically inspire you. So if you've got something that you're really passionate about, whether it's frogs or sea level change or acts of domestic terrorism, it doesn't matter. Go find some data and let the data inspire your hypotheses or questions or project goals. The other way is just to think about basic habitat modeling, and it doesn't have to be animal habitat. It can be any sort of modeling where the forward version would be, okay, I know the places that I want to identify. You know, this kind of elevation, this kind of slope, this kind of wind speed, in this state, not in this county, with a population of this. And then model that, put all of that together to figure out the places where all those things exist together. A backward kind of habitat modeling is to know where the things are that you're interested in. It could be bird nests or Starbucks, it doesn't really matter, but extract landscape characteristics that are common to where your entity exists. That way you're developing a habitat description for this thing of interest to you. Another idea is just to repeat a lab that you found really interesting, but you'd want to increase the complexity, increase the spatial scale, work with bigger, more diverse data sets. So the labs can be a good inspiration and a good launching pad for building a larger 5-week project. Or find a mentor, whether it's a class that you've really enjoyed taking or some concept that you heard about in another class, or maybe a faculty member that you're just really interested in working with. Reach out to them and ask them if they have a small GIS project for you to work on. Just to remind you, the ones that I have right now, I've got a remote sensing based land use change project in Kenya that's going to be really interesting, but it will require somebody who's got some remote sensing skills. I've got another project that's basically building a large personality attribute table, a big characteristic table of watersheds in the Great Basin area, describing things like elevation, slope, stream power. I think it'd be very similar to the hydrologic analyses lab, but you'd be doing it for multiple watersheds, and then ideally relating these watershed characteristics to bug distributions. I've got a public web mapping exercise that's kind of showcasing gateway communities, and these are identified communities outside of national parks. But this would be very intensive with story mapping and interactive web mapping. Another habitat characteristic kind of project is working to describe landscape characteristics relating to elk and mule deer habitat, proximity to water. You might make some cost surface rasters like we talked about in class. This one I think could grow into a bigger project depending on interest. Tyler's got the testing of his Python script project, and it isn't just a Python-based thing. I think that all of you are capable of learning the Python that you would need to understand this script, but the idea would be to find real-world applications for it or use it with other data sets to really put it through the ringer. You might be able to come up with improvements for it, and it'd be very interesting to recreate the process of this script using Model Builder, which is something that exists in ARC. And then finally, Anthony's got a great, it's kind of like a habitat modeling, but it's a forage modeling that you'd be doing. And so, creating a bunch of inputs to map forage systems in the Wasatch. So that's what I've got so far. You, of course, could riff off any one of these. I'd welcome you to meet with the faculty mentor if you have any interest in any of these projects. And get in touch with me if you have other questions. Thanks.